My name is Imani and I love to crochet clothes, specifically tops, and I want to teach you how to crochet too. Welcome to my new series, Learn to Crochet for Beginners. Welcome to How to Crochet for Beginners. This is lesson 1, how to make a slip knot and how to make a chain. First things first, I want to talk a little bit about the hooks and the yarn. So, first things first, this right here, which you've seen before, it's like a pack of yarn. This is called a skein. So we would call this a skein of yarn. The yarn I am using for this tutorial is Red Heart Super Saver, and it is in light periwinkle. Now, this yarn is a medium weight yarn. Different type of yarns are measured by or categorized by their weight, which essentially is like the size of this string. This is a medium weight yarn, but there are some strings that are lightweight or bulky, but you always want to look at the back and look at the size of the yarn or the weight of the yarn. And you also want to look at what hook size corresponds with that size of yarn, which will always tell you, or usually always tell you, on the back of this skein of yarn. This yarn corresponds with a 5.5 millimeter hook, which is what we are going to use. But for the most part, I always use a 5 millimeter hook, and that is what most projects use as far as hook size. But it definitely varies. My suggestion is that as a beginner, you get a crochet kit, which has, a number of hook sizes, a number of other items that you will need for crocheting in the future. Yeah, so that is the weight of yarn we will be using. This is the yarn, and this is the hook that we will be using. This is my 5 millimeter hook. I suggest using a hook with a rubber handle. It's just more comfortable for your hands while you're crocheting, but I couldn't find my hook in the 5.5 millimeter size, so I will just be using this regular hook that does not have a rubber handle. All right, so getting right into it, we are going to make a slip knot. A slip knot is the loop that will be on your hook that will essentially get your project and your crocheting going. It is going to lead you into making a chain and then building stitches and rows after that. So there are a couple different ways to make a slip knot. I'm going to show you what I think is the most digestible way as a beginner. So what you want to do is you want to have 2 fingers out like this, and you want to drape your yarn over your 2 fingers. Now, as you can see, there's a little bit of length left to the end of this yarn. You want to make sure that length is there because you will need to tuck this in to your project later, and you want to have enough length of the yarn to be able to do that. So I'd say maybe a good 6 inches worth of yarn you want to leave as the tail. So you have this draped over these 2 fingers. You're going to take the other side, the other piece of yarn, the other end of your yarn, and you want to cross it over your 2 fingers to create kind of like an X. Now, you're going to take your thumb and you're going to pinch where those 2 ends of the yarn meet, and you're going to pull this off your fingers to create a loop. So as you can see, it's a crossover and it's a loop. From here, I like to make my loop big enough, and then I take my pointer finger and my thumb and I reach through and grab the end of the yarn that is not the one that's ending. This is the end of the yarn. We want to grab the yarn that is connected to the skein and pull it through that loop. From here, you're pinching this right here, and then you're going to just pull the end of the yarn, the one that's 6 inches left. You're going to pull that tight, and then you have made a loop. So this is a pretty big loop, right? So what we're going to do is we are going to take the 2 ends of this yarn and pull it apart slightly to make the loop smaller. And so now the loop is smaller. We'll take our hook, we'll put it inside the loop, and we'll just tighten it to our loop. Not too tight. You don't want this too tight on your hook. So too tight is that. I made it too tight, and now it just doesn't easily move up the hook. You want to make it loose enough, and you just make it looser by pulling on the yarn, and this end of the yarn that's connected to the skein is what gives you slack. So we want to make sure it's loose enough. See, there's a little space in between. and we want it to move easily up and down the hook. One of the biggest mistakes that beginners make is making things too tight, so we're really going to focus on having a loose enough tension while starting out. Next, we're going to talk about how to hold your hook. There are two different ways, or maybe more than two, but two different ways that I see the hook commonly held. So you can hold your hook like a pen or a pencil, which is, if you know how to hold a pen or pencil, is pretty self-explanatory, but you're using your pointer finger and your thumb, and you're kind of holding it like a pencil, and then you're working into your work. Or you can hold it like a knife, like if you're cutting a steak, you can hold it like that, which is how I hold my hook. So I will be holding my hook how I naturally hold it. I personally don't actually know how to crochet in the style of a pen, of holding it like a pen or pencil. So I will be holding it like a knife, but you choose which feels the most natural to you. Now that we have our hook down and how to hold that, let's talk about holding the piece of yarn as you're crocheting. So the most important thing about this is that this is going to control your tension, and that is one of the biggest struggles with beginners when it comes to crochet, is making the stitches either too tight or too loose, but mostly it's that struggle with making it too tight. So I'm going to show you two different ways to hold the yarn. I feel like the first one I'm going to show you is more beginner friendly. So first things first, this may seem a little confusing, but bear with me. You're going to have your hand out like this. You're going to take your yarn and you're going to put it in between your ring finger and your pinky finger. You're going to loop this around your pinky finger again. You are going to drag this over to go in between your pointer finger and your middle finger, like that. And then from there, that is how we will hold the string from here. And as you crochet, you would just pull this. This would be pulled, and you see it keeps like a pretty constant tension. So I feel like that's a very beginner-friendly way to hold the yarn. By the way, I did struggle with tension a lot as a beginner, so that's very common. So don't feel bad if this is something that takes you a little time to get down when you start crocheting. So what I like to do is to loop the yarn around my pointer finger once, and then once again, so that's looped twice, and then that string is pulled like that. And then, I always can like pinch it and pull the string more if I need to, or let it flow more if it's too tight. So that's how I'm going to crochet for this video. So we know how to hold our hook, and I'm holding mine like you hold a knife. And we know how to hold our yarn. I am looping mine around my pointer finger. So now let's get to making a chain. So to control the tension, what we want to do, this little knot right here that we made when we made the slip knot, we're going to take our thumb and our middle finger and pinch the knot. Not necessarily the hook, but the knot. And we are going to control the tension by holding that knot. You see how this glides seamlessly up and down the hook? We want to make sure that it stays that way throughout this whole project. So let's begin. We pinch the knot, and then we take our hook and we go under the yarn, or as we usually say, we say yarn over, because the yarn is under the hook and then crossing over. So we call that yarn over. So again, keep checking your tension. So if you need to undo this loop and then just do it again for better tension, whether it needs to be tighter or looser, that's what you can do. And so we're pinching the knot, and then we're yarning over the hook, and there's the hook part. And then we're going to pull the string that we yarned over the hook through the loop that is on the bottom of the hook. So not the bottom, but the lower part of the hook. So we're pinching the knot. We have our string around the hook, and now we are just going to pull through. And that's one stitch for the chain. Let's go again. Yarn over the hook, and we are pulling the hook through the loop that was on the hook. That's two. A third one. Yarn over. 3. Now, a nice little hack that I like to think of, two things. Notice we were holding the knot as we were yarning over. What we can do to make sure that this does not get too tight around the hook, the loop, we want to kind of pull away from the hook. And so the yarn that hooks over the hook, that goes over the hook, might pull away too. But look how much like room we have in the hook. Like if you can see that, there's like space to pull it through. The further you go up the chain, the more that you crochet the chain and it gets longer, you want to bring those fingers up and start pinching closer to where the live loop is, just to control that tension. Another trick, if you're having a hard time pulling the string through the loop, you can start twisting the hook to manipulate that string going through. So notice the hook is facing up, we crossed over. As we start to pull this string down, we can twist the hook to where it hooks from the back, or it's turned towards the back, and then pull it through. Oop. Let's do that one more time. Yarn over and then twist it through. Yarn over, twist it through. You may find that that's not as easy as just pulling it through straight. Do whatever works for you. You can yarn over, and instead of pulling the hook down, you can pull this up and pull it over the hook. There's many different ways to do it. Let's talk about the anatomy of the chain. So, as you can see, we've made a couple of them. The way that you determine what a stitch is, as you can see, there's this little like V. See it like V, V, V. Each of these V's is one stitch. And there's a hole inside the V's that which you will put your hook in later to create more stitches. Let's count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's do 2 more and make it an even 15 stitches. 1, yarn over, pull it through the loop. 2, that's 15. So that is how you make a chain. These V's are the front of the chain, and it should always look like a V in these stitches. If you turn the chain around, you will see that it's like a link, almost like a link of a chain. That's where this name comes from. There are 3 different loops in this chain. So there's the V, 1, 2. So this is the front loop. And this is the back loop. The front loop is always like on top. If the chain is facing you, it's always the top loop. And the bottom loop is always at the bottom. Or the back loop, I'm sorry. This is the front loop and the back loop. But it's always at the bottom of the chain if it's facing you. And then if you flip this over, this is right here, the back loop. So these are things that you will need to know for later, because sometimes you work in only the front or the back loop. This is the chain. Stay tuned for lesson 2, where we will learn how to make a single crochet.